Today we're going to identify visual elements and design principles in various artworks. Visual elements include line, shape, mass, color, and texture. Design principles include unity, variety, emphasis, subordination, contrast, balance, scale, and proportion. These terms are the basic vocabulary when discussing art and will help describe works and articulate the viewer's opinions. We'll start with visual elements and look at line first. Identify where the lines are located and what type of lines are used. In this work, both vertical and horizontal straight lines frame the windows, floors, and overall design of the building. Be sure to consider line variations like diagonals, curving, soft, thick, thin, or implied lines. Next, we'll identify shapes. There are two broad categories: geometric like squares and circles, or organic, which are irregular. Most man-made objects are geometric. It seems humans have an inherent need to organize, so we produce circular clocks, oval tables, rectangular beds, and so on. Organic shapes are very common in nature, such as clouds, trees, rocks, and flowers. This image shows an elaborate room in the Palace of Versailles, which is man-made and thus made up of many geometric shapes. Note the rectangles, circles, ovals, squares, etc. Next is space, which can be actual or implied. Paintings can imply spatial depth using a foreground, middle ground, and background, with items receding in size. Or there can be actual space in architecture, such as our example pictured here. This is the interior colonnade of the Grand Trianon Palace at Versailles. Notice the large interior space framed by columns and ceiling. Also note the patterned floor and how the squares change as they get further away. Color is our next visual element and probably the easiest to identify. Primary colors are red, yellow, and blue. Mixing any two primary colors results in a secondary color of either orange, green, or violet. This image shows the Chagall windows from the Art Institute of Chicago, where the primary colors of red, yellow, and blue are used, with a predominance of the vibrant blue color. Also look for complementary color schemes, which are colors opposite each other on the color wheel, and appear brighter, like red and green, or monochromatic color schemes, which use various shades of the same color. The last visual element we'll look at is texture, which also can be actual or implied. One of the reasons I love Van Gogh's work so much is the texture. He often applied paint with a palette knife, and the paint literally juts off the canvas in globs of color, creating an uneven texture. However, artists more often use implied textures in paintings, such as this portrait by Elizabeth Louise Vigée-Lebrun. Note how the artist has visually represented the soft feathers, or the silky smooth fur, and the satiny material of her dress. Next, we'll examine some basic design principles. First is unity and variety, and we see both in the staircase of the Art Institute of Chicago. The unity, or oneness, in this work is the standardized steps and the uniformly sized block text. Variety is most evident in the multiple colors used. The next work is Rodin's The Kiss, which displays emphasis and subordination. Note how the bodies are emphasized by the smooth, finished appearance as they wrap around each other, while the lesser area of interest, or subordinated portion, has been left deliberately rough and mottled. Our last image is El Greco's St. Martin and the Beggar. This is a perfect example of proper scale and exaggerated proportions. Scale refers to the size relation of one thing to another, such as the man to the horse. The man is properly sized compared to the larger horse, and so the scale is accurate. However, proportion is the size relation of parts to a whole, or in this case, limbs to a body. Note how the head seems too small for the long body, and the legs seem stunted below the cloth, which appears to hide an unusually long hip area. This shows slightly exaggerated proportions. Thanks for joining me on this short study of identifying visual elements and design principles.